Welcome to the Startup Support Surgery podcast, where we light the entrepreneurial spark in medics and healthcare professionals. Join me, Dr. Jo Watkins, GP, business coach and co-founder of The How People, on a journey to discover where your medical know-how meets the business world. This will help you find some clarity on how to balance work, passions and family so that you can gain more freedom and control over your life, but also continue to help people, which is actually why most of us went into medicine to start with. Embarking on this entrepreneurial adventure is not easy. It is a roller coaster of emotions, but it's hugely rewarding and exciting in the process. Drawing on my 20 years of blending medicine and business as a GP, I am here to share experiences, insights and lessons. Expect lively chats, expert interviews and real-life stories from medics who have taken their own path. Let's break free from traditional healthcare norms and explore more innovative ways of making a real difference to people's health and well-being, along with paving the way for a brighter future for us as healthcare professionals. Oh, don't miss my free PDF called From Stethoscope to Startup, which is an 11-page guide in the show notes full of practical help and advice. This is your roadmap to kickstarting your journey with us. Enjoy the show. Joining me on the podcast today, I have got Dr. Alice Faulkner. Now, Alice is a Locum Emergency Medicine Registrar who runs her own business called Yoga in the Woods. Alice is also a Hatha, Vinyasa, trauma-informed restorative yoga teacher and Reiki practitioner based in Leeds. On this podcast, Alice talks about such important topics, including getting balance in our lives, bringing perspective as medical practitioners, and how she now turns up at work with a smile, knowing that she is doing great work within and outside of the NHS. She talks about confidence, we talk about building that self-trust, and we talk about the importance of reaching out and sending the email. I really enjoyed this chat with Alice. We met at the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine in 2023, and that's when she joined the Startup Programme. But really excitingly, Alice is about to spend this winter in Kenya. She will be returning to the place of her birth, and she'll be offering yoga and Reiki at the Kilifi Wellness Festival and eco lodges, as well as enjoying some travelling and a really well-deserved break. And I know, Alice, you are actually leaving in 2 weeks' time, so thank you so much for making time to jump on the podcast and talk to us today. We are really looking forward to speaking to you. So welcome, Alice. Thank you for coming along to the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Jo. It's wonderful to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure. And I'm so excited you're about to get on a plane, because this is the kind of thing, if I'd said to you this time last year or in October 2023, in a year's time, you'll be running your own business and going to do it in Kenya for 3 months, what would you have said to me?
Oh, gosh, it just wouldn't have seemed likely or possible. And yeah, it's amazing to be doing it because, like you say, a year ago wasn't even an idea. It wasn't even a speculation.
Okay, so let's go back to that time. So we mentioned we met in October. You were actually doing things already. Tell me where you were at in terms of your training, how medicine was working for you with your ideas, and whether or not you started up your business, etc. at that point.
So we met in October, and I had just finished/left training. So I got as far as CT3 in my ACCS emergency medicine training, and I was just core. So I came to a natural end there. And if I wished to continue, I'd need to re-interview to continue, but I knew I wanted to end there. And so when I met you, I was fresh-faced and opening into this new life, not quite knowing what it was going to look like, but having a few ideas, but knowing I wanted something different outside of doctoring, and that I was going to start that through yoga, but also that lifestyle medicine was a really nice connection through sort of mixing my holistic side as well as doctoring. You mentioned asking about my journey up until that point. So I did 3 years of the emergency medicine training, and I went into it so passionate about being emergency medicine registrar and doctor. But I think, as so many of us find, I became quite disillusioned during the training process. It was also during COVID, but I started soul searching. What do I actually really enjoy? What brings me a lot of passion? And does this serve me? What do I want to do? And that's how I ended up naturally coming to that end and then starting this new chapter.
Amazing. And I think that I can tell in your voice that you're now at peace with that. And I think that's taken a while to come. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And it's really nice now speaking to a friend just this morning about it, and how when I was going through training, I felt this real conflict in myself of being my doctor self when I was at work, but feeling like I wasn't being true, authentic to myself. And this wasn't really what I was doing. I was at odds. And when I was in my sort of spiritual, holistic world, that was in one me and the other side was a me, and I kind of couldn't marry the two. Whereas now, because I'm still locuming as an emergency medicine registrar, when I go to work and do those shifts, I'm known as a yoga teacher and people know me as having a small business. And so I can bring both sides of me there at peace. And I'm not pretending in either zone of who I am. I feel like me in both areas now, which was what I was really struggling with a year ago.
And how's that gone down with staff, colleagues, juniors, seniors? Because I think quite a lot of the time we have this fear around showing our true selves if we're doing something a little bit different. And I know from personal experience, when I left my practice as a GP partner, I had some very difficult conversations with one of the partners particularly, and most of them were really supportive, but one of them in particularly just made me feel really bad about what I was doing. And I think that's never really left me, actually. So how's it gone with those, with the colleagues? Because that's often something people worry about.
Really mixed. And it's interesting the different people who supported or didn't support me. I found that when I was exploring the idea before I left, or I'd made the decision that I was leaving, this is what I was going to do, and people asking if I was going to continue and reapply, I found that a lot of the registrars were really supportive and like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. I wish I had done something like that. That's brilliant. A lot of the junior doctors who were like SHOs, they were quite admiring of it. And then the consultants had a mix of cautious support, I would say. Oh, that sounds really good, but in quite a parenty way. Are you sure about this? Think about your future. You've come this far. And also there'd be another party in which they may spend a while telling you the reasons not to do something and to continue, but then immediately follow that with a sort of a little moan, perhaps, or all the things that are wrong about their continuing their decision, not recognizing the disparity between advising me to stay into doing something that they're perhaps not completely pleased with. So I think I was really fortunate in that I got a mix, and mostly positive mix, but also probably what helped me the most was that coming back to myself, my core, having that trust of myself, and also that the people that mattered, the opinions that mattered, which were my partner, my friends, my family who know me, they believed in it and they trusted me to go and do that. And that's actually ultimately what matters. The people who don't support you, they're not in your support ring, they're not going to be there for you. That's okay. Continue your journey. This is mine.
Yeah. And I love the idea of you showing up now as an emergency registrar with this other huge part of your world, which I'm sure makes you much more in tune with patients' needs. And I'm sure it has really just enhanced what you can give people clinically alongside your traditional training. And you strike me as somebody that isn't struggling with feeling enough. And I think a lot of medics who take a different path struggle with that. Is that something that you've ever felt? Or you seem very at peace with this now, and it's really lovely to see this.
It's really interesting because I would say before I left training, I hugely didn't feel enough. And that is part of the reason I left. I just had such imposter syndrome, didn't feel like I could do the job well enough. I was as much as I could be. I was letting this down, letting that down, and also letting myself down because I wasn't being my true authentic self. Whereas now I go into work and I do feel that balance within myself and that I can offer different perspectives. And also I think that perspective piece is really huge, because I think people who have children have this as well. I don't have children. But I think that I remember speaking to someone who had just had a baby and was returning to training, and her approach to medicine was very different to before she'd had the baby, and that she now had something that was more important than the job. And it kind of gave that perspective. And I think when you're working with an NHS or any kind of job that keeps you going on this hamster wheel, and actually just general society, it encourages you to not think, just to stay focused, with blinkers on, do this one thing, doesn't allow you the energy to look beyond. And now when I go to work, I've got this fresh breath of air and I can see all the other avenues, the other opportunities. I come in and people say, wow, you look so great, you look so healthy, you look so happy, you have so much energy. And I think, oh yeah, because I don't do this as much, which I'm really appreciative of. And it's nice to be able to bring that full me rather than the sort of shell of me each time and literally just do the job.
Wonderful. So let's talk about your business. I mean, there's a lot there. You're doing an awful lot in terms of the different modalities that you're serving and helping people. How are you finding that process of running a business, working for yourself? What are you enjoying? I guess let's go with the enjoyment first. What are the great things about doing it?
It makes me smile like this. It's a genuine smile that I can't control. I just feel a little bit giddy. And I think that comes from just so much pride that I created this thing, that this thing didn't exist before I made it, and that people amazingly find it, pay, and come and join and love it too. Other things that I really like is that it's my thing. I'm deciding when I work, how I work, what it looks like. And so there's that independence, that's self-authority in how I work. And the other thing I would say is that it's allowing me to do more of the stuff that I wanted to do. So part of the reason I do yoga in the woods is because I wanted to spend more time in the woods, in nature. And so I created my offering to allow me to do what I want to do more. So by nature of doing my offering, I'm spending more time in nature, which makes me feel better and live more the lifestyle that I want to be living.
I love that. And I think we talk a lot about building a business that is what you're looking to do and achieve in 3 years, 5 years down the line. And I think I remember we spoke a little bit about this, because obviously with all of these offerings that you have, you might have gone in a different direction. For example, you might have wanted to get a yoga studio or employ other people and training other people up and spreading more of a kind of brand locally. And then you've got different problems and different advantages or, disadvantages or advantages of running a business that way. What you've done is said, I don't want any of those overheads. I don't want any of those commitments. I want to be able to take off and spend 3 months in Kenya. And I want to be actually doing my yoga in the woods, which is where I get my energy from. So you have completely curated that. And that's something that you've done purposefully and intentionally, because you've taken those considered steps when you've built your business. Would you agree with that? Looking sort of, you don't really realize you're doing it at the time, do you? But retrospectively, that's what you've done, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that I think there's an element of foresight, but not to the degree that when I look back, I realize that. And really, when you were saying that I could have taken a different avenue to create a yoga studio, I immediately felt this like tension and sickness, just like, oh gosh, no, please, I don't want to do that. Which is kind of like if you'd said to me, oh, go and work in a business or go do that shift somewhere else. And it was just a real, no, that's not for me. Whereas you say to me, go into the woods, go into a park, something like that. I'm like, oh yes, okay, I'll go and do that. So really listening, getting that intuition with your body and to yourself as to which avenues are yeses and which ones are nos. And that comes with taking that time, taking that connection, doing all the self-reflection, doing different exercises to work out what are your yeses and what are your nos and what lights you up.
Absolutely. So important. And those yes, for every yes you are closing a door as well, remembering that if you commit to something and you say you're going to do something, then a different opportunity will pass you by. So I love that concept of intuition and just knowing. But I think you have to have that. I think it's really important to have some sort of plan. And I think that comes from a place where I've created stuff without that plan. I've been so caught up in the whole, startup business, particularly with my granola business, like really exciting, really great product. Everybody wants it. Love growing a brand, love sales, love marketing, learning so much. But suddenly I'm producing kilograms of the stuff and showing up in markets and being asked to go to, food fairs up and down the country, which is taking weekends and taking me away from the kids. And, every single yes along the way was like, actually, is this what I want? And halfway along that journey, someone said to me, well, nobody ever makes a successful business out of making the product themselves. And I remember hearing it and thinking, well, I'm sure it'll be different for me. Or he was like, well, how are you going to, what's your exit strategy? And I'm like, I'll work that out as I go along. And what you then create is a monster that doesn't really align with what you want out of your life. So spending this time thinking, what do I want? Do I want to be able to pack my business up in a bag and get on a plane? Or do I want to, have something that's more bricks and mortar, and knowing how that feels? So that intuition piece is brilliant. Tell us about your travels. You're heading off soon. Obviously, this podcast will be listened to at any time in the future, but you're about to get on a plane for 3 months. Tell me about that, what that looks like and how that's come about.
So I'm so excited about this trip. I grew up in Africa. So I was born in Zimbabwe and I lived in Zambia and South Africa throughout my primary school years. And I've been back to both countries a couple of times, but not really as an independent adult. And the more that I become connected to my intuition, connected to myself, I can really feel that spiritual calling coming through. And so that's what this trip is about. And through the yoga and also feeling just more like I have more to offer. Even though as a doctor you have a lot to offer, it's very specific what you can offer. And having more self-trust in myself, I just started messaging, started looking for opportunities, and they've opened up from there. So I'll be teaching at the Kilifi Wellness Festival. I'm also going to be at eco lodges, doing some volunteering, traveling. And I've not even planned the whole of my trip. And there was this really amazing moment. So my partner's coming out with me for the first 3 weeks and we're just doing a little holiday together, and then he's leaving. And while we were doing some research, I found this blog, which was for solo traveling around Kenya. And I thought, oh, well, that's not really relevant, but here's some helpful places, sent it to him. And then a few days later, it suddenly dawned on me that I was going to be a solo travel person in Kenya. And that is something that I've always feared doing. But I think having developed this self-trust, developed this confidence in my capabilities by putting myself in tricky situations such as flyering and that kind of thing for the business, and also by networking. So I know people out there now who are going to support me, going to help me, put me in contact with things. I didn't even realize I was going alone. And so going out there with about half the trip planned, half of it not, just sort of hoping that it will, and trusting that it will work out, but also trusting that I can fix it if it doesn't quite go the right way, is so exciting because, like I said, I didn't think that I could travel around Africa by myself a year ago, and now I'm doing without realizing it.
I wonder whether you'll actually come back. It sounds like you've got it sorted.
No, I am going to come back. I'm so excited. So this week, so it's end of November, this week's my last week of yoga in the woods. And then I've got a few weeks before I go. And it's really lovely to feel like I'm wrapping up yoga in the woods and to be so excited to relaunch it in the spring. And I've got so many ideas and I've got so many little breadcrumbs about what I'm going to do and how I'm going to expand it. But having that sort of seasonal thing of being like, I'm excited to close and I'm really excited to open it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And, these are the perfect months. And as you know, we do this quite often. We disappear off for 3 months. And I think, especially when you're working in the woods environment, to be able to come back and absolutely relaunch in the spring is brilliant. But the ideas that will come to you and the opportunities once you can quieten your mind and take away all of that day-to-day hustle and bustle, that, I find that's when all of those sort of creative, business-related ideas really come in for me. And I have, the notes section on my phone is fairly active on flights and bus journeys and you just don't expect it. And suddenly it's like, whoosh. So I think your business will also massively benefit alongside you, obviously hugely benefiting. There's just a couple of things I'd love to pick out of what you just said. This self-trust, this confidence, and you've done hard things, like you've done difficult things, you've overcome difficult hurdles, you've had challenging conversations, you've had to go against the grain, and that all builds confidence, doesn't it? And I think that when people talk about imposter syndrome, and I sort of say, well, we're beginners at things, and we're starting out on this business journey, and it is about growth. So you've got this confidence, and with this confidence has come one of the all-time best pieces of advice that we ever had in How People with any of the experts that came in to talk to the girls, which was just send the email. Whatever you're doing, if you see something and you think, God, I'd love to have a chat with them, or wouldn't they be great to spend time with, or what if I was able to make that happen? Just send the email. And it was a brilliant girl. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she was doing biochemistry degree and she was not really enjoying it very much. And so she was in a lift, and in the lift they had some advert for the entomology department, and some professor of entomology was doing some talk, and she was like, "Oh, I've always really liked insects." And in the time that she was in the lift, she sort of took a picture of the email. So I'm just going to message him. Anyway, she's now, working in the Amazon, counting insects and researching new species, and her whole life has changed. So her message was just send the email, and that you've just given a brilliant example of that. So well done. And I'm sure that's opened so many doors. Like you say, you feel like you've got friends there right now.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And I think you're so right with that, just send the email. I think I almost to a degree feel, it's not true, but I almost feel like I have more networks out in Kenya than I do here in England. And I think that's because I know I have these 3 months to fill with like opportunities and things, and there's not like all the restrictions of normal life getting in the way. I'm sending out email being like, oh, I'm coming here. What about that? And it's incredible. And I really want to try and harness that when I come back, to try and like create that space within my schedule when I'm in England and the UK. But easier said than done. There's a reason why we all end up being so sort of jam-packed in our schedule, saying no and yes to the right or the wrong things. But definitely sending that email, feeling brave enough to send it, not minding what it comes back as. Just put it out there and see.
Yeah. And look at what's happened. So I look forward to following that journey. I really do. And I look forward to hearing what you get up to when you get home. For people out there, just as we kind of wrap up, for people out there that, other medics, maybe, a couple of years ago version of yourself, or somebody that's thinking about starting out in business, or maybe somebody that's started out or things haven't quite gone to plan. Have you got any bits of advice that you've picked up along the way that you would like to share with anybody in those sort of shoes?
I would say that the most important advice I'd say is, if you're starting to feel that little burn of interest of something different, is to try to create time, which is sometimes quite hard to do, to reflect, to go out in nature, go do something different or spacious that allows you to reflect on it a bit and to see what you can do with it. What can it take you? That kind of thing. Just start connecting with that idea, thinking about it more, putting it out more into the universe and allowing it to fly. Just harnessing that. And then when it comes to advice for once you're getting going or started, the things that I found most pivotal, firstly, is finding a community or network. And I think this is something that you found, that when a lot of us joined your program, we didn't think we needed a community, but actually that was one of the most useful things we got from it. And it doesn't have to be that you join a program. It can be networking. It can be like-minded people. When I speak to my friends about my business, my family, my clients, it's really great, but they don't quite get it. It's a bit like talking to when two medics talk. You just speak, you just understand the background of what's going on. And so having people to share the business journey with and the similarities or differences, things you're struggling with, really supports and helps you feel like you're in a community, like you're less alone. The other thing I'd say is don't wait until you're ready, because then you've probably missed it. Something that I really learned from you, and actually how I ended up when I was joining your program, I was just about to go and do my yoga teacher training, and you message said you got the starting. I said, oh, no, it's not quite the right time. I'm going to miss 3 weeks of it. I don't want to get left behind, all this kind of stuff. And you were like, oh, no, just come along, see. And I found that throughout my journey is that you're never going to feel ready to do that first post, to do that whatever. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just go and do it, because it really likelihood it'll be enough. And the final thing I would say is to be realistic. It is hard. I've talked in this podcast, I've talked a lot about the positives of it, but it's also always with you. The delight of it being your own thing is also the downside, which is it's your own thing. It is constantly in your thoughts. You're constantly thinking about it. It travels everywhere with you. And so therefore boundaries between rest and business and other stuff can become really quite blurred. And so my onward battle, which I think is quite similar to a lot of other small business owners or business owners, and it may continue forever, is finding those self boundaries to, no, that's my business. I'm going to try and switch off that part of my brain. And now I'm resting. I'm prioritizing why I did this, which is to create more balance, to create more whatever. And although the business is an avenue to that, that is not the business.
This is an ongoing piece of work, I think, for every entrepreneur and business owner. Like you say, there's no off switch. Not that there is in medicine, to be honest. We don't clock off at 5 and we never have done. But we walk away from a hospital, we walk away from a GP surgery. We cannot do any more. More and more I hear of GPs checking blood results and doing work at home, but actually on the whole, we walk away and we just go back the next day and do the best job that we can again. And I think that is one of the most challenging things of running a business, from the end of the kitchen table, from your home office, from when you're away as well. Like if you try and take your business away with you on a trip, it never leaves you. So finding those boundaries and those things that you can create day to day to sort of separate your business from your life. An opportune time for my husband to come in, because he will say that I am not very good at setting boundaries. So we are always learning and we are always aspiring to have that difference. But I don't really know many people who don't struggle with that at our stages of business. So I think that, like you say, that is a work in progress. But you have highlighted so many brilliant things. You've talked about balance. You've talked about perspective. You've talked about the importance of community. And I just really, really appreciate you sharing all of your insights today, Alice. And I wish you all the best for this trip. And please come and tell us this time next year. We'll do this again and see where you are off to the next time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jo.
And how do people get in touch with you? If people live near you, we can link everything down in the show notes below. But you're up in the Leeds area, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm in the Leeds area and my website is alicefaulkner.com, which is my name.com. And I'm also on Instagram, Alice Faulkner Yoga, and also on LinkedIn as well with my name. It'd be wonderful to connect with anyone who is interested in doing so.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Alice. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope this episode has sparked some new ideas or challenged your thinking. Transitioning from medicine to business is not easy. It's about adapting our skills while embracing the unknowns of entrepreneurship. It can be nerve-wracking, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. Please feel free to reach out to me via direct message on LinkedIn or Instagram, or just shoot me an email at jo@bendylegs.com for support. And don't forget to grab the free PDF from the show notes, From Stethoscope to Startup, which is your go-to guide and resource for diving into entrepreneurship. Many thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Thanks for spending your precious time with me.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.